A lot of people, they can associate with uncomfortableness as misalignment. And I think you really need to learn the difference between misalignment and what lights you up compared to actually doing hard things. And what I find is a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't focus on themselves. They just focus on the hustle and they get stuck into it because they're chasing that next client, that next lead, that next sale. And what happens is they forget about themselves. And we forget that sometimes we are actually our best asset. A lot of people forget sometimes we need to slow down to speed up. What is your mission? We're not just here to run a business for the sake of it. We're here to discover our soul's purpose. What impact do we want to make on the world? And once we've actually gone that next step deeper, that's where we lead from alignment every single day.
Hello, beautiful souls. It is Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. Before we dive into today's podcast, I do have a small request from my heart. If our conversations ever resonate with you or have supported you on your journey, please subscribe to our channel or like this video. It helps us grow Sacred You, welcome more powerful voices into this space, and keep you connected to everything we share. Thank you for walking this path with us. Let us begin with today's conversation. Welcome to the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast. My name is Sophia from Sacred You. More importantly, with me on today's exciting episode is the beautiful Sasha Eburne. Sasha, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited because you talk a lot about something that is really close to my heart, and it's like from burnout, especially entrepreneurs. I would pretty well roughly say that most entrepreneurs have experienced some type of burnout in their life, to really reclaiming your power and stepping into your purpose and your path. I'm excited to get going. Can I say, Sasha, so you're a no-nonsense business coach, great, who helps virtual assistants, this is different, and other online service providers to really get rid of that chaos and step into their power of being the CEO or the creator of their business, of their services. So I'd love to know more about you, Sasha. How did you get into this? Because I know you've had a career in hospitality and you're a mum, of course. But just take us back to a moment when you first realized that you can't do it anymore.
Yeah, so it was actually a global pandemic that forced my hand. We were in the hotel industry. We were the worst hit as we housed all of the international quarantines in our hotels. And we were the first hotel that entered the program. So my daughter was only about 9 months or so and stood down, 25-year career, literally just gone. And I did everything I could to make sure that the income was coming into the home for the next year, tried my luck in real estate. And it was just by chance that during the pandemic, I joined a company and sold Body Shop at home when I was doing facial parties online while everybody was at home. And I went and gave some of the Body Shop to an ex-colleague of mine. And we went and had a coffee outside of a cafe because we weren't allowed in the cafes at that point in time. And she told me that she too she'd started her own business and she was making more in 3 days in her business than she used to in 5 days in the hotel industry. And I'd always been a serial entrepreneur at heart. I'd always had a side hustle or always tried lots of different businesses. So my ears pricked up and I asked her about, well, what does a virtual assistant do? And tell me about what you do. And I was just like, I could do that. And I sat on it for 6 months. I didn't do anything. I just watched the space from afar. And then one day in my real estate role, it just wasn't lighting me up. And they had me doing the same task all day, every day for 5 days. I'm just like, there's got to be more to life than this. So I started my business and within 24 hours, I'd secured my first client.
Which is amazing. And I have to say, especially in today's world, in the age of technology and even AI, virtual assistants are indispensable if you have a business and want to move forward. Like we're so fortunate that we have 6 VAs. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who say, I really need a virtual assistant, but I can't afford it. But yet they don't realize how much time it's costing them doing the stuff that someone else can do so they can spend time on creating an income and stuff.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is? In your experience, what keeps, especially women who are in careers and that no longer align with them, and they want to move into, being an entrepreneur, but it's this mentality of, I can't afford it.
It's a great question. I think a lot of it comes from our conditioning. As we're brought up, we grow up as kids, a lot of the information that we're taught is if you can't afford it, don't buy it. Money doesn't grow on trees. And there's a lot of scarcity that's put into us as we grow up to stay conditioned to the 9 to 5. And I played that game for a while. I'm a solo mum, and I always looked at my friends and I'm like, oh, they have husbands with highly paid jobs. If they wanted to just go all in on a business, they could. And I always just thought that couldn't be me. And I managed to break outside of that mold. But I think a lot of people, they sit in the scarcity of it because it feels unknown to them. So they don't want to go into the uncomfortable zone. They want to sit there in the comfort zone with having that paycheck that hits their bank account every single week. Whereas if they actually look at it in a little bit different, to be like, actually, isn't it time to take control of how much I earn? If I wanted to start a business, it all comes down to me. And I hear this a lot with a lot of entrepreneurs. They're like, oh, I can't afford a mentor. So it's the same thing. It's like, one, I can't afford to start a business, or two, I can't afford a mentor to learn how to do it right. And then you've also got the flip side that you've spoken about of, I can't afford to get support. All of these limitations that we put on ourselves keep us stuck and keep us playing small. So if we were to actually step outside of our comfort zone to try something new, we can just take the action to make sure that it does work. We just have to leave no stone unturned. So whether it's investing in a mentor, whether it's starting that business, everything can work as long as you do. You just have to take the right aligned action to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you so much. It's like, I'm not ready. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have this, but we are keeping ourselves small.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, I think a lot of people have a fear, I guess, of it's going to be too much. It's overwhelming. And this thing called burnout. Some people think that burnout is just part of the job for many women, especially mothers. And I'd just like to take a moment to honor you, Sasha, because being a mum and an entrepreneur and everything else takes a lot of time. But what are some signs that you've experienced and that you see in others where someone's really burning out? It's not just being tired. What are some signs when that happens?
Normally a bit of fatigue steps in, or they're just like, I just can't move today. And what I find is a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't focus on themselves. They just focus on the hustle, and they get stuck into it because they're chasing that next client, that next lead, that next sale. And what happens is they forget about themselves. And we forget that sometimes we are actually our best asset. So taking time to introduce some nervous system regulation into your life, wherever you stand on some spiritual implementation, breath work is very much science-based. There's a lot of things that we can do that don't take up so much time in our lives that can actually make a big difference in making sure that we do regulate our nervous system. And I think a lot of people forget that. They're just like, oh, I'm just going to keep on going. I've heard I'll sleep when I'm dead type of thing. And it's just like, you have to focus on yourself. And if you're out of alignment, or if you're fatigued or tired, it's because you haven't taken the time. And I think people think that it takes a long time to do that, or it takes a long time to stop. But actually, you could implement 5 minutes of breath work in the morning, in the afternoon, whether you do meditation, find the one that works for you, because there's no right or wrong. Everybody's different. It can make a huge difference in the way that you show up. And you can be actually acting at your best, highest frequency all the time should you implement those things. So I think just a lot of people forget sometimes we need to slow down to speed up.
Yes, and I love that. It's so true. Sometimes we definitely do need to slow down, take a break, take a breath, even take a break in order to center ourselves, to rebalance, and then to go forward. Yes. Now you mentioned alignment. And again, this is from experience and talking to other people. Some cause of burnout, when we're really burning out, we're trying to do stuff, we're pushing, because we're not really aligned with our business. How do we know? How can we find out what we're aligned with?
It's a really hard question for a lot of people that are so disassociated from themselves. So I can tell you, before I started doing the work, I was very disassociated. I was floating through life, very little emotions. So it's about coming back to self and trusting self. And I think a lot of people, they can associate with uncomfortableness as misalignment. And I think you really need to learn the difference between misalignment and what lights you up compared to actually doing hard things. And I think that's really important because people do get them confused. So I think if you are so in alignment in terms of your mission, your goals, the trajectory of your life and your business, there are going to be times that it might feel difficult or feel icky, but you have to know the difference between misalignment and icky, because there is a lot of uncomfortable things that we need to do to get them to being comfortable. But what it comes down to is, and I really encourage all my clients to be like, what is your mission? We're not just here to run a business for the sake of it. We're here to discover our soul's purpose. What impact do we want to make on the world? And once we've actually gone that next step deeper, that's where we lead from alignment every single day. So every decision that we make in our business should come back to, does that serve our mission? Does that serve where we're going? And staying true to that and honoring that. And I think a lot of people, they steer away from it because they're like, it's just too big. It's too big than me. And I really encourage them to, the bigger the better. Why not? Why not have a big, scary mission where you can make so much impact? Because then life just gets to be amazing.
So true. Thank you for sharing that. Really follow your mission, follow your passion, and you will be guided.
Exactly.
Truly guided. Thank you for sharing. And I'd love to know more, Sasha. I also want to get into your business and about the VAs and how we can help virtual assistants become their own CEO too. But even before that, you mentioned a couple of really important words that I picked up on. And one is to regulate our nervous system. Really important. And you mentioned breath work. So I'd love to know if you have any more tips about how people can regulate their breath work. And this word, when we disassociate ourselves from our feelings, what do we do? What did you do?
So I didn't realize I was so disassociated. And for those that are listening, they might be like, what does that mean? So generally when we talk about being disassociated, with like looking at your world through a lens rather than actually looking through it from your own eyes. That's really the distinguish of it. And what I realized was I went and did NLP training, which is neuro-linguistic programming, for anyone that doesn't know. And what that allowed me to do was to really shed a lot of the stories that I was living in my life and shed a lot of the maybe negative limiting beliefs, limiting decisions that I had, because we got to rewrite the stories, we got to change the narrative on those. So then they weren't holding me back. So I didn't have all of this heavy baggage that I would go into a situation, it would trigger me of a past event. That just doesn't happen anymore. And what it has allowed me to do is not only feel a lot more, is actually being vulnerable to feeling, because that's actually the human experience. Whereas a lot of people, because of past conditioning, past experiences, they shy away from feeling because of the fear of getting hurt or the fear of something else in the past. So because I rewrote all those stories, it allowed me just to be vulnerable and being open to feelings, whatever they may be, and actually experiencing them throughout my entire body. Then it's also about how can we amplify them? How can we just have a really true human experience? And that also comes from really great human conversations. And one of the biggest takeaways that came out of that was not only can you be open to feeling, is actually talking about things that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And I think that's where a lot of us sit in this surface level world. And actually life can be so much more if you get to know somebody on a deeper level, you ask really great questions, you actually get to know who they are. And what I realized that there was quite a lot of surface level relationships that I had. And I was just like, this isn't fun anymore. This is just like, how's the weather? What's going on in your world? And I want more than that. And then you asked about breath work. So I took my own breathwork journey and did a lot of really large group breakthrough sessions. And in the past, my limiting belief around breathwork was it was all just spiritual. And the more knowledge and research that I've done on it is it's actually science. It's actually about learning to regulate the body, and the way that we breathe normally is not the way that our vessel was designed to breathe. Because as when we were being brought up, we were told, oh, you can just breathe without thinking about it. But actually, breathing needs to be done with intention, and breathing needs to be done in a certain way that actually allows us to breathe. Because a lot of times when you bring it to people's attention, they're like, oh, like they gasp for air because they haven't actually been breathing properly. So there's very much a science behind breath work. And there's a lot of different types of breath that you can do depending upon what's happening in your body. And it can be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And I think it's a really great tool to implement as an entrepreneur, because we are always on the go, and it can really just bring us down to this level to just ground ourselves and just get back to where we need to go.
Yes, and again, thank you for sharing. And something I also totally agree with, because I use breathwork myself, and it helps so much for the different aspects of work. There are times that, and I totally believe and recommend, as you do, rest is best. We really do need to rest, especially throughout the day. But I also know there are times when you just can't, for whatever reason, you just can't. And so you use breath work to bring oxygen to your brain and to help your body, and then you don't need that rest at that time. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And for anyone who is listening or watching, you want to know more, do reach out to Sasha, because I think, Sasha, you've got lots of experience. You're a walking example.
Thank you.
Living example of what can do when you regulate your emotions and look after yourself. Even being a mum and an entrepreneur, we have to put ourselves first. And I'd love to know, Sasha, also from your experience, what are some common, I think, misconceptions that people have about starting over again, especially women, that you would like women to understand?
Yeah, there's a few. The main ones are probably like, it's scary. That's what I hear. Like, I'm scared. And what we kind of work out is there's generally a fear of failure. Sometimes there's also a fear of success, being seen, being vulnerable, putting their face on social media. And in terms of the fear of failure, the only time that it fails is when you choose for it to fail. So on the flip side of that, a lot of women, they want this magic pill that they're going to take, they're going to start a business, and they're going to be millionaires overnight, which then causes a flow-on effect that might try a couple of strategies for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and then go into that mindset of it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. So I failed. So I'm going to go back to my 9 to 5. And it's this vicious cycle. So I try to use a lot of my modalities in terms of, we've spoken about nervous system regulation, but also in terms of the way that they look and feel and believe in themselves. Because if they don't believe that they can do it, they're not going to be able to do it. So it comes down to a self-trust, a self-belief, and also they have to put in the work. It's about consistency, and it's about putting in the work day in and day out. And I'm not saying hustle, but there is a level of consistency that is required, and also a level of learning, because we don't all learn business. Most of the time we come into business, we know how to do the work that we're servicing our clients. So if you talk about virtual assistants or coaches, they know how to do the work. They don't know how to run a business. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to find clients. They don't know how to market. And that's the gap that's missing, that they are unaware that they need to learn that to make the business successful. So it's really about how can we support them to actually rewrite the narrative, trust themselves so that they can keep on going and keep the business going consistently, so that they can, let's say, get to that goal of, say, having a fully booked client base, or say taking a step back and going on holidays. You've got to do the little bit or a lot of work, depending on where you're at, to actually get there. And I think because it feels so far away, a lot of people steer away from it and they don't do it.
Yes. And again, thank you. That's true. Now, is this similar to stepping into your CEO energy? What does that actually really look like in practice for someone who's just starting?
So what that generally looks like are the women that just get stuck in the business and working in the business rather than on the business. So they'll get a couple of clients and then they will never spend the time to actually work on the business or to plan out the trajectory of it or to ask for help. They're like, I can't afford to get help in, so I get to do it all myself. Then they don't grow and then they burn out. So really stepping into that CEO level is actually putting on his CEO hat, thinking and feeling and living like a CEO and be like, well, what would a CEO do? And being okay with, I'm going to invest in my business. I'm going to get the support in so I can gain back, say, 5 hours. So I can then go and either get more clients or I can grow the business, or what does that trajectory look like? And it's really about how can I act differently, or what sort of persona or alter ego that I can adopt as a CEO to be making those decisions. Because what happens is a lot of women, they might have some success, get a fully booked client base, but they're still sitting in that 9 to 5 exchanging time for money. So it's about flipping the mindset from an employee to a CEO and thinking and living and breathing like a CEO and creating the business around them. I talk very much a lot about being first business. I think it's really important because we are at the core of the business. And if we're not putting ourselves first and we're not crafting the structure, if we're not crafting the way our clients work around us, then again, it's crafting a business around a business rather than you, because you're the most important part of the business.
Yes, if you're not there, then there is no business.
Correct.
If you burn out, there's no one else, unless you're in a business with other people and you have backups and everything else. But if you absolutely burn out, then there is no business.
Correct.
So we have to be able to manage it. Just the whole thing is, and especially for women like yourself, Sasha, those who've got children and everything else, you have to manage it no matter how small it is. It won't get any bigger if we don't put ourselves first. And I'd love to know more about you working with these. Now, in general, when someone talks about a virtual assistant, a VA, it's like VAs working for other people. But you actually work with VAs and service providers to help them become CEOs of their own business. Yeah, so tell us more about that.
Yeah, so when I started my virtual assistant business, what I realized is it wasn't just contracting myself out as a freelancer to these other businesses. It was actually about running it as a business service. And there's very much a flip in terms of that. So I became the business owner and I offered services to other businesses. Whereas a lot of people start a virtual assistant business and think that they're just going to freelance to all of these businesses.
Yes.
And that's actually not how it needs to be done. It needs to be run like a proper business. And then as I went through it, what I worked out is it can be as small or as big as you like. And then a lot of the frameworks that I use to grow that business, I've also used to grow my coaching business. So we do now support coaches and other online entrepreneurs. We service e-com brands, website designers, graphic designers, because all of the frameworks in terms of sales and marketing are the same across all of those. And it's about really flipping that script to be like, I'm not sitting here to exchange time and money. And that's where a lot of people start their business. They compare their rates to an employee. So they're very much underselling what they have to offer and really just making that switch to actually run it as a business rather than I'm just going to sit here, exchange the time for money and charge like an employee, when we know as a business, we have so many more expenses than an employee. So you need to charge more to be profitable and actually making money that's actually going to serve you in the long run in your business. So it's a mindset shift. And then it's about teaching them all the principles of how to run a successful and sustainable business. And then it's adding on that sales and marketing training as well, because let's be honest, when we all start a business, we don't know how to secure clients. We don't know how to market our business. We're just making it up as we go along. So I really give them some really great, easy to learn strategies so that they can master that, so they can grow that sustainable business.
Thank you. I will certainly be checking out all your links. And for anyone who is watching, I do encourage, click on the links below and do explore everything that Sasha has to offer.
Thank you.
And including that, I do read that you have a a signature roadmap. How does that help women grow with their confidence in their business?
Yeah, so it's about, there's a few things. We talked about the sales and marketing. That's very much part of the blueprint and learning that, but it's about becoming a different self.
Yeah.
It's a journey, it's a self journey, and it's about changing who we are to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And that blueprint supports them so that they can get rid of all of that self-doubt, those limiting beliefs that I can't do it, and actually step into their power, become the woman that they were destined to, as well as making an impact in their own business.
And it sounds so simple, but when you have someone like yourself to help you, it really is just that mindset shift and embodying the mindset. Because a lot of us think, especially that we need a lot of help and a lot of people and doing a lot of hard work to hit those 5-figure months. But you have a totally different approach that, no, you don't have to do that. It's just the mindset.
Yeah. It's just forgetting what we've been told over time, that you have to work hard to make money. That's just something that we were told. It's just part of our conditioning, and we get to choose a different story.
Yeah, it is so true. Tell us more, Sasha. Tell us more about your career, or is there anything else that you would like to share? Because I do know we were talking before that you have a mentorship. Tell us about all what you offer.
Yeah, thank you. We do offer a signature program, which is a 12-month mentorship, and we have tried this in lots of different ways. We've tried it as a 12-week program, a 6 weeks, 12, 6 months. And what I've realized, to create that sustainable business, which is the key, we don't just want a little bit of a side hustle. For us to create a business that can stand the test of time, a minimum of 12 months is required to work together.
Yes.
And the reason for that is we need to learn, and we need to adopt different strategies. And again, like we said, we need to embody the mindset. We need to learn it, change the beliefs, and then embody it. And in our 12-month mentorship, we work really closely with our business owners to support them, and it's personalized. So you don't just come into the program, into the community, and become a number. Everything's personalized. There is direct access to our coaches 24/7, so they're not left alone. Because in business, if we're left alone, sometimes we just don't know where to go. We're just making it up as we go. So it's really we walk alongside you program in terms of the direct access to myself and the coaches. We then have our community calls where everyone comes and learns something about 3 to 4 times a week, as well as backed by our strategies and our modules that they can tap into. And the biggest benefit and my love and the reason why I do it is the community. I see some beautiful business relationships coming out of it, some friendships coming out of it. I've got clients that are coming into their 4th year with me, and just the community is growing, and seeing how many friendships and connections that have come out of it. That's really the big kicker for me, and the fact that I have the opportunity to grow this community globally, and that we have some clients in America and France and in New Zealand, the fact that we can bring everybody together so that they have other people outside of just me and my coaches to walk alongside them. I think it's really beautiful.
Yes, the value of community, incredible. You've got each other's back. You know what it's like. Yes, it's so much more powerful, as you said, than even just having coaches and stuff, but being able to be there to connect with like-minded people, like-minded women who have similar experiences. Yes, thank you again. And I'd love to know, Sasha, especially like if we could go into your personal life, looking back on your journey from being in hospitality and everything that happened there to your online business. What's one part of your transformation that still surprises you the most, and how did that happen?
I have talked about this before. I do guest speak quite a lot around the region here, and it's interesting. I never really held myself to a high standard before, but if I reflect on how I actually made decisions over the last 20 odd years, that I've always done things a little bit different anyway, which is true to who I am now and at my core. So even going back to when I was in high school and I wanted to change my subjects, because let's be honest, what 16, 17-year-old knows actually what they want to do with their life or where they want to go? And I was told, no, you can't change your subjects. And I was just like, oh, okay, what am I going to do? I did actually start exploring different avenues and speaking with my parents about what could I do, because I don't want to go on this trajectory. And we'd actually collectively made the decision to leave school halfway through year 11 and go and study at TAFE. And we'd explored what does that look like. And it was just by chance that my mum told me about one of her cousins that worked in London in a hotel. We'd been quite fortunate over the years to travel quite a lot around the world. And I was just like, that works, let's try that. So I guess in society, leaving school in year 11 is quite frowned upon. And a lot of people are shocked when I say, yeah, I didn't actually finish high school. However, I went and took a different path. I ended up with a certificate 3 and 2 diplomas at the same time everybody else was finishing year 12. Really, from an early age, I was saying, no, I'm out, or I want to do things differently. When I was at home at 17, I was going to have to start paying board. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. So I went and lived on site in a hotel and really started my adult journey. I wanted to go work for the airlines at one stage, and I have a tattoo. They said, no, you can't work for us. So literally I sold all of my stuff. I packed up my house and I applied for jobs in the Middle East every day for 30 days because I had a desire to work for Emirates. And within 30 days, I'd secured a job in Abu Dhabi, jumped on a plane to a country I'd never been to. And I lived and worked in a hotel in Abu Dhabi for a year. So I've always been there. If you tell me no, I'll go one next step further and do it my own way. Yes. And I was like, this is actually better. I didn't want to leave hotels. I've now got a job in an amazing country that I've never been to, doing what I love and running events. Whereas before I could have totally left the industry and worked for the airlines and been a flight attendant, should that have happened. So I feel like definitely not taking no for an answer has really been part of my DNA for some time. And now that I've reflected on that and I get to see that, I just get to make those decisions. Even my journey to become a solo mum, I hadn't met the right guy. And by the time I was 30, I was told you probably can't conceive a child. So I went and conceived a child on my own. And now my daughter's 6.5 and we have this amazing life. And if I had sat there and sat in a story or sat in the victim mentality to be like, oh, we'll never have a child, she wouldn't be here today. So I'm very much I don't take no for an answer. And there's so many other ways that we can approach things or make different decisions to create the life that we want.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. It's given me goosebumps. And,
you're welcome.
And I'd just like to honour you again. And you might not have finished so-called high school, but to me, because I was the same, I left in year 11 because for me it was the school of life that was going to teach you much more. And when you can able to make your own decisions and saying no, having the courage to say no, that this is not my path, I'm going to be doing this. Thank you. You are an amazing woman. Thank you. And I'd love to know, you mentioned about your child and being a solo mum. You made that decision that you wanted a child, even though you were single. What has that taught you about your leadership roles and being resilient now?
Yeah, I think, again, it's when I first started, I didn't know anybody else that had done it at all. And I was worried about what society would say. And that's just come from our conditioning. And a lot of people, said, actually, you need a man and a wife or a male and a female to bring up a child in a family. And I was just like, who decided that? Actually, who decided that? We have so many different types of families these days. We have people that adopt, we have 2 mum families, we have 2 dad families. And I was just like, who's to say that you need 2 people? And what I've learned about myself is actually I'm a great mum, and a lot of what she actually teaches I can bring to my coaching and my learning, because I think that sometimes we actually underestimate how much our little people in the world can actually teach us. We don't give them enough credit. They are so smart. They are so clever. And I learn so much about myself every day because of what she teaches me. And I think that just that reflection is huge. And the amount of women that have actually come into my program that are solo mums around the country, I think is huge. I've got 5 of them right now that are working with me because I've paved the way and showed them that it's not a limitation. It's actually a superpower. And if I can show them that I can build and run this successful business, then so can they.
Yes. And like I said before, you are a wonderful example that you can bring up children. If this is your purpose, if this is your desire, if this is your passion to have a child and have a business, It is possible. It's just learning on how to manage it all, and not burning out, still putting yourself first so you can be there for both.
Exactly.
And stuff, because a lot of people call, your businesses as a child too. So there is both that that you manage with yourself. I'd love to go back a little bit, Sasha, before we end and talk about really intuition. Because a lot of people I know, especially when they're deregulated, they're disassociated from their feelings, from their emotions, they block their intuition. So in your experience, how can a woman really tune back into her intuition when they've been in survival mode and stress for years?
Yeah, I think awareness is the first piece, is awareness of the feeling around intuition. And I can tell you, from somebody that never listened to her intuition, people pleaser, all of those things, I've definitely come on the other side of that and learnt to honor the feelings in my body, especially when it comes to saying no to things that are not aligned, or being okay with saying no to going places if you're like, actually, it doesn't feel good for me. And it's about really tuning into your body and feeling what feels icky and what feels good and what feels in alignment for you. And once you've made it an awareness around in your body and a reflection, you can really start honoring that and leaning into that. And what I find is the more people are open to leaning into it, the more they're like, oh, my intuition served me. So I think what a lot of people do is they just ignore it because they're like, oh, it's better. I feel better because I'm not letting someone down. And actually, on the flip side of that, normally you end up feeling worse because you haven't listened to your intuition, you've ignored it, and then you've put somebody else's needs in front of yours, and then you are left feeling out of alignment. So really just allowing your intuition to come through, tapping into those feelings, and then actually seeing where they lead you, because the more you do that, the more that it will really cement listening to your intuition. It's kind of those things, you have to trust it first, and then you'll be like, actually, my intuition it's actually what it is all cracked up to be. So really just trusting and listening and feeling, and then allowing it to come through each time.
And as you said, just trusting.
Yeah.
And allowing, giving yourself permission just to tune in, because your intuition helps in so many places. It doesn't take a lot of time. That's the great thing about me listening to your intuition, is instantaneous when you can tune into it. Thank you. And Sasha, if someone who is listening really feels that they're at breaking point, they are overwhelmed, they are burnt out, but doesn't know where to begin, what's one thing that you would like to share with them that they can use today?
Just take a breath. Take a breath and know that everything can actually turn out however you want it to turn out. It's all a choice. And if you're in a situation or a life that you don't love, don't desire, is start talking to the right people, just having conversations, connecting with other people that have potentially been on the path that you'd like to go, and actually know that you are meant for more. And you probably have this fire deep down to be like, I know I'm meant for more. I know that there's something else, and know that can come out as long as you allow it.
Thank you for sharing that. And a couple of quick questions before we finish up. What's one word that describes your CEO energy?
Oh, you got me. What is one? Let's say alignment. Because I feel like I lead from alignment, and that's what I always come back to. Like, what is in alignment to make that decision to stay true to it.
Okay, thank you. And what is a morning ritual that you swear by?
Coffee. Every single time.
Ditto on that one, especially coffee sitting out on the balcony and breathing.
Yes.
While you're drinking. And a limiting belief that you have completely released, that no longer affects you.
Yeah, I used to think that I wasn't good enough.
Okay.
Now I know that I am.
So how did you really release that? How did you get over that? Because we do work on ourselves, but there's still that niggling little voice in the back. So how has it all gone?
It's an intentional choice every single day.
And keep doing it.
Yeah.
Every day. Yes. Yeah. And your go-to mantra when self-doubt creeps in?
It's just your unconscious trying to keep you safe. It's actually not the way you think or feel.
Love it. Thank you ever so much for that. And Sasha, is there any other question that I could have asked you? And how would you answer?
I think we've covered it. This has been a great conversation. I think you've asked all the right questions. So now I've got nothing else to add.
Love it. Thank you so much. Please do come back. I'm going to, once I will definitely be checking out all your links and your programs that you offer, and really encourage everyone who is listening to or watching to do the same, to click on those links. And Sasha, it has been a real honor to talk to you today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. What a beautiful way to close this conversation. Sasha Eburne reminded us that if you are feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, or like life is not aligned with who you truly are, the first step is not to push harder. It is simply to pause, take a breath, and trust that your life can unfold differently. As Sasha so powerfully shared, you are meant for more. And sometimes all it takes is allowing yourself to believe that possibility. If today's conversation resonated with you and you are ready to build a sustainable business without sacrificing yourself in the process, be sure to connect with Sasha. Explore her 12-month mentorship, coaching programs, and business resources designed to help virtual assistants and online service providers confidently step into their CEO role. You will find all of Sasha's links and resources in the notes below. For more empowering conversations, tools, and strategies, do follow Sacred You on all the social media, or visit our website at www.sacredyou, that is the letter U.love. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button or give us a like so that you never miss another episode. As Sasha shared, the burnout is not a badge of honor. It is often a sign that we become disconnected from ourselves. True success comes from regulating your nervous system, listening to our intuition, and leading our businesses and lives from alignment rather than fear. Until next time, stay grounded, stay inspired, and keep walking your pathway to well-being. From our heart to yours, thank you for walking this sacred journey with us.